Uh, um, so what I like about cities, I think if I had to break it down to one big concept, would be the idea of movement. So yeah, the cities are, in my opinion, an embodiment of that idea of movement. Beyond that, you have the idea of mixity, uh, still a thing that you can attach to the drawing in itself. Um, Variety of people, movement. You have the anonymous side as well. That is, I think, fascinating, especially for the crowd drawings. And in that idea of movement, if you kind of take a time, if you pose yourself in a city, which I like to do, especially when it's a drawing time or sketching time, and you just stand still and watch things go with the flow, it's kind of a fascinating movement. I think that the verticality of the buildings and the horizontality of the streets is a strong receptacle for this idea of movement. And in relations to my drawings, I would say that there can be violence in it, or sweet scenes, or kind of dancing scenes, like ballet almost. And that's something very city-like for me. If you kind of pose, there is something very violent about some cities, and at the same time, if you look into the details, there is always life and sweetness. So I guess yeah, it's a strong part of my work for those reasons. Whether I draw on location or in the studio depends on obviously the project. I guess a lot of my drawing practice comes from sketching. I improved a lot, I think, doing that. I think it's a strong part of an important part of the process. I think sketching or live sessions are done to stay in that category. I kind of do sketch so they stay as sketch. To be clear, like I'm not going to, if I do a sketching project, I'm going to look for some kind of energy, some kind of moment, but I'm not going to touch the drawings after that. I think there is a strong energy in sketching, something that you cannot control, which is a good thing in drawing to look for, or in creation, for it may be, to look for accidents. And so when you draw from life, there is a moment. Sometimes you're in the subway or you're outside, it starts raining, whatever happens, and you're kind of forced to stop. You don't have, you're not into that process when you're on your desk and with that blank page and you don't know where to start. That's something very beautiful about sketching. I think everything is interesting to be drawn. It's just a matter of how you're going to represent it and approach it. So the studio work really dig into that part of my work, I think, and that's a relation between the two of it. But beyond that, I think that yeah, the two are very separate. So if it's going to be a narrative book or whatever, it's going to be a studio work, and it's not based on strictly observed. I don't do a research phase where I draw drawing where I go drawing outside and then I take the drawings I did outside and go back to the studio. But it's obviously one that nourish another. And when I feel the studio work is getting too, I don't know, sometimes a bit lazy, maybe I go back outside. So the way I approached the structure is Rotten Kamrad and Viken Berberian's story. Um, is I guess it's a balance of Viken's text, the energy in it, and the relationship we built on together on that book. There was really a dialogue. So you have that part that influenced the result. And the second part that influenced the result is the fact that it was going to be a big book, like 300 pages. The way the project started is Viken a few years ago wrote a text that is not the final text. It was kind of a shorter story that he was going to publish in a magazine. So the magazine approached me asking me if I wanted to do drawings on that story. I said no, like it's not. I'm not sure I want to work with someone's story and stuff. But I read the stuff and I was like, I had plenty of images in my mind coming right away, because Viken's text was kind of crazy, kind of violent but sweet at the same time, and I was like, okay, I had a lot of ideas coming up, and that's what I like about it. When you have that kind of stuff coming up, that means you have the need or the want to do the drawings, which is a good sign. Um, so we started it that way, and I did the drawing, and I just out of respect for Viken, which I didn't know at that time, uh, we agreed upon the fact that I would do what I like because it was a free gig. But out of respect, I still sent some sketches, and the sketches were like I knew how to read them because I knew where I wanted to go, but I thought that somebody that is not used to read images would not understand them. And Viken was like, great. He read everything. He was frantic about it. He was very excited, and he even rewrote some part of the story after the drawings were done. So there was that kind of exchange that happened, and beyond that, the relation to the approach of the to the text and the drawing in itself is, like I said, it's a 300 pages, so I didn't want to spend like 4 years on it, which you can do if you want to have an approach, a very classical or very nice and neat approach. So I decided to take out all the relationship I would say that comic book can have with cinema. I kind of taken out all the classical, the bubbles, the frames, the shot related sequences. It kind of made it very simple. You get 2 or 3 characters that you can really recognize, and beyond that, it's kind of more blurry. Um, and after that, I just went with the flow. I had 300 drawings to do, and I just like went frantic on it. And I just, yeah, there was that kind of energy with the wrecking balls and stuff. And I just took my pen and went for it. The funny thing about that book is that the main, it's happening in Yerevan, right, in Armenia, but I've never been there. So it's kind of and I didn't want to go before doing the book. I think the idea was it's a fictional story, so it's kind of a strange thing to do. I did a book on a city I've never been to. So Viken sent me a lot of precise references that I can use. I use some photos just for specific stuff, and I'm kind of so the story is happening it's about architecture and brutalism and stuff, and I'm kind of into that as well. So he sent me a lot of details from Yerevan, a lot of statues, a lot of buildings, people crouching and stuff, and I just kind of created myself a mental view of the place. So he sent me like strong details, or there is a marketplace that I loved, and I just kind of more like almost like a theater. I took the stages that I liked, and I just put the character in it. I did kind of a mock-up, some kind of a draft of all the book, and it was mainly for me to see how I would make the text interact with the drawing, how I would approach that, because I had no idea. So I kind of started doing the book roughly, and basically I didn't really I didn't go back. Like I took some A4 pages and I started doing the book. It took me, I think, a month to do the sketches. Viken was kind of I think he was very into the idea of having the full book sketched just to present it to publishers. I think I wasn't convinced at that time because it represented a lot of work for me, but I still went for it. So we had the full book already done in sketches. I think I didn't redraw anything really. Sometimes it was like not readable and stuff, but you still had the idea of where the text would go. If you had full pages, I really did that to find the rhythm of the book visually, because I think that's an important part of a book, the rhythm. We're still into the movement. And so we presented the project to Thomas Gabizon from Actes Sud. And then so when the thing was signed and we were sure we were going for it and stuff, I just took out the sketches and I just redid them. I just redraw them. I'm not sure that's something more personal, but if you were to question the utility, the interest of doing that, I'm not sure in terms of graphical result, but that's my point of view. I feel like we're still coming back to that idea of sketch. I think that first intent is something that it's hard to recreate. And I found myself confronted to that when I kind of redrew the draft, basically to make it more nice, I think. And obviously, that is an important part in a comic book, to make it more understandable, more readable, because you got to, for the readers, yeah, you got to be able to understand what's happening. So you had to be a bit more gentle with drawing. In terms of pure result, I think I really like the sketches, in terms of energy and stuff. Obviously, it was not publishable in that aspect because it's like very rough. And so yeah, it took like 6 months, and I just redrew the thing. It's very direct. You don't have any. I have my pencils. I don't kind of have that base, and I don't kind of do a nice light sketch and just uh, rework on it. It's just I go for it. Most of the time I know where I go. The way I construct a drawing, I think most of the time is that I set up the space, which is an important part on most of my drawings. So I set up the space, and if you have like something badly drawn or you have a mistake, you kind of handle it. I think that's what I do with most of my drawings. Sometimes you have something kind of nicely or not well drawn, but more precise, I would say, a bit more realistic. And sometimes I do something more realistic because I have to balance something that was, let's say, more rough, badly drawn. And sometimes I do something badly drawn because I know that I have something realistic just in front of that thing that is badly drawn. So that's kind of back and forth that happens when I do drawings. But for the book, beyond that, I just went with the flow. From the first phase of the project, when I didn't know Weekend, the first phase was like 5 or 6 big drawings. Most of them are, I think, in the exhibition, uh, which for them I took much more time. I think I took like a week by drawing. So that kind of drawing is much more like based on patience and kind of balancing things and just building up the drawing in itself. While when I did the drawing for the book, when it was going to be a comic book, I have a much more rougher approach, and you can even feel, and that's something that I like about that book. You can feel there is some kind of an evolution from the beginning of the book to the end. I think from in the beginning of the book, I'm a bit shy, trying to be a bit more precise, and as the story build up, and you have the distraction of Yerevan happening more and more and stuff. It's getting the drawings are getting a bit more full. I think I changed some tools. I kind of technically I used different pencils, and so it's getting more rough, more full and stuff. And I like the fact that in that book you have that evolution. I think in most of the comic book you expect it to look the same from page 1 to page 48 or whatever, but I think it's kind of not realistic to the fact that it's not a 1 day project. It's like 6 months, a year and a half. Sometimes people take 3 years to do a comic book. So I always find kind of strange that, or hard to do, to keep that line and not change anything. I think drawing is a great way to appropriate yourself the place. This kind of almost that shamanic idea behind it, or when people you have that kind of I don't know where it's coming from, that idea that photograph steal the soul of somebody. I had that strong relation to New York. When I went there for my studies, I did a 6 months exchange abroad in New York, and I arrived during winter, and I still went for it and went outside to draw. Drawing is a good way to just wander around and just explore. You wait, you see a good thing, start to draw it, and it's kind of yours. You just start to draw people, and then it's that kind of, you kind of feel like you belong to the place after that. So wandering around, drawing and walking is a great thing to do.